Okay, so we are ready when y'all are. We have a PowerPoint no hearings today, but we do have some rules to go. Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
All members present. Has everyone had a chance to review the director's decisions, violation resume, warning letters, and inadequate status letters?
I do have a question on violations. May or may not put time, but Shooter Sports Bar and Grill, all the violations, severity of the violations, why are we still only looking at a $900 fine?
So we have statutory maximums on a lot of our fines, which are a little bit lower than what I'm experiencing on the tobacco side. So I have to ask the attorney specifically, and we may need to go back up and pull the file and look if you want us to get more detailed about it. But some of them, it's truly the max we can do. Other ones we do toss in some warnings if you think that we're more severe on the
In the past, now this may be their first violation for some of these acts, but in the past, you know, I've seen it's been permit for some of these things, have to have a hearing. I'm assuming they're just gonna pay that for a long without hearing.
We can double check and we'll let you know if it's on that list, then they have accepted. And if they don't, we will.
Yeah, I would pay that too. Not having a hearing. Yeah. That would be pretty severe. Okay.
And we can always look back at it too, and we'll talk with the attorneys and see if that's one that there was a specific reason maybe in our proof.
That names sound familiar. Shooters.
They've had some violations before, but just the content of these is a little more severe than $900 worth of same like.
I actually don't have that one in my packet, so I'm missing the violation one.
All next.
It's pretty good.
I feel like I've seen them on this list.
Yeah, they've had some other. No.
Sorry.
Motion. Director to city violation resumes, warning letters, and acting status letters that we.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Would you like to do the ABC administrative updates first or the promulgation of the new?
We can kind of do them in tandem because I put PowerPoint slides up there for the rules so that you guys can read them and ask questions and get through.
Okay.
So, Julia, this is telling us about our seminars. We had, I think the time before last, we had almost 100 attendees. We were kind of shocked. It came a little bit back down to normal this past month. We had 58, and we will be continuing to have those over at 15 for now. However, the tobacco merchant educator and training position is now open. We are considering using that position across the hall in both ways. Same way that gas stations a lot of times have a beer permit and a tobacco permit. A lot of people need the education for both sober awareness for tobacco and for alcohol. So we're going to try to kind of merge that education together, make it a little bit more thorough. And then once we get our new computer system, which will replace RMS, we will be able to have assessments and online education. So that way, if you guys see a hearing and you think, I think every server at this restaurant needs to take an education class, they can log in on their portal into the system, view the video, and take like a 10-question quiz that we create for them at the end. So that will be up and running for probably a year at least, but that is our hope in kind of amping up the education part of what we do. The next one. Okay, so I told some of y'all already, we're so excited to have Holly Spear here. She was hired as our new medical marijuana attorney, but in sad news, Aaron Lowry left our office since the last hearing. So he's over at the Attorney General's office now. So we now have an alcohol attorney position that is posted. So if you know any attorneys that you think might want to get into regulatory law, send them our way. But for now, some of the marijuana attorneys may be picking up a little bit of the alcohol stuff, and you guys may see Cameron Coker as well. He's our tobacco attorney. He may come in and do a few hearings if we need it. And then I told you guys we're going to get law clerks come in every semester now. Right now we have JD and Ariston, and they've been super helpful. Okay, so things have been rolling on the alcohol side. We sent out 45 offers last month. Were accepted, and that's about $25,000. We've got 8 directors hearings scheduled out through September. which we're down to one alcohol attorney. So we're gonna try to not move any of those to get them covered as much as we can. There may be some that I have to do myself, just, but we want to make sure we don't get behind on that. And then we have, since the last, there's been two board hearings, or two directors hearings, I'm sorry. On the marijuana side, things have slowed down a little bit because we were so busy with a revocation and with renewals. So only a few offers have gone out on the marijuana side lately, but when we get Holly up and running, I expect to see those numbers stand back up to what they were for renewals. Okay, we have been busy with all kinds of meetings lately. I'll start at the top. Trent and I and Brandy went to the National Conference of State Liquor Administrators in Washington, D.C. It was really interesting to see what other states are doing. Even then, we've got some calls lately about people wanting to consider permitting a boat. Well, in Washington, D.C., part of our conference was on a boat that was an alcohol permitted excursion. It took us up and down the river. So not only do we learn about the laws, but we also kind of just got to talk to people about what computer systems they use, what type of permits are popular there. So I think it was really helpful, and I want ABC to keep attending those national conferences so that we can get in line with what other states are doing.
Historically, has ABC ever sent people to those kind of things?
It is my understanding we have not before. So we are hoping to amp that up. We're gonna also try to get in with CANRA, which is the Cannabis Association of Regulators, and Potter's pretty well connected in on the enforcement side. We've got Chip kind of connected, but we're hoping to actually have a table at the next cannabis conference, which I think is maybe at the end of the year.
Just go sit next to me.
We can do that. And then the next one, we talked with Nebraska. We met some of Nebraska, or no, we met some Computronics people, which is a company that handles the record management system at the conference, and they said, you guys need to talk to Nebraska. So we did. We've been having meetings with them about what worked well for them. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars working with a private consulting company that helped them get all their requirements for their software system. And then they gave that to us. So we got a very expensive document from Nebraska that has thousands of requirements to help us get this new RMS system going. So that was very exciting for us. Also, lots of letters up here today. We met with BLR, which is Legislative Research, about the CAR codification project. That's basically the Code of Arkansas Regulations. It's a statewide project where they are trying to get all of our rules into the same style as every other agency. So that way, one, you're not saying, a code with a numbered section and the other one is a lettered section, and one's calling them a board and the other's calling, it's basically for consistency purposes. So we've been moving on that for the ABC side, and the tobacco side, we have not gotten any feedback on marijuana yet, so I think that's probably to come. We have been working with OIS to improve the DFA website, that's specifically ABC's portion of it. So here in the next couple months, I think it will go live August 1st. The website will look a little bit different. Hopefully we can move some things to be a little bit more helpful for our industry members. We've had a lot of feedback from beer wholesalers about the spreadsheets they look at. They're kind of hard to get the information they actually want to get out of them. So we're hoping some of those improvements will be real good. And then the last one, the Department of Health is in, the public comment period may have ended now, but they were promulgating rules. And as marijuana is so confusing, the Department of Health has the authority to promulgate rules about labels. But our enforcement staff has to enforce that. So we had a meeting with them not long ago to talk about some red flags we saw. There's a few things in the rules we really like. A universal symbol for THC that other states have adopted that we have not yet adopted. So that would be really good. But some of the other things, we wanted them to get some feedback from us as far as colors. They had a rule in there that no neon colors were allowed, and that if any color was on a package of a saturation of more than 60%, wasn't allowed. And we were just kind of like, well, I don't know how to enforce that. So we took them to a cultivation site, we took them to a dispensary, and we're trying to bring them in so that they can see the types of stuff that we see, and they understand, oh, hey, Potter's enforcement guys won't be able to tell 60% pink versus 65% pink, So that's one thing. And then another thing we've heard comments back from the industry on is the use of the word cake and cookie. as I'm sure you guys are aware from the hearings you've seen, those are strain names. Sometimes they're product names, but they're also strain names, which is actually the genetics of the plant. So there's a little bit of back and forth to see how that will kind of pan out too. But those are the updates on those rules. They are not final yet, but we hope to be in conversation with the Department of Health even after they promulgate them. Obviously, how to
Can you talk about what the RMS system is, like what that is and what it's trying to be?
Yes. So the RMS system is what spits out the resume for y'all. It also is what we approve every permit on, and it's how we keep track of violations. The current system was made for tobacco, and ABC kind of piggybacked on. So let's think about a gas station again. You have the same address, the same manager, the same phone number, you just have two different alcohol and tobacco permits. Well, sometimes if you go in and change something on an alcohol permit, it jacks with the stuff on the tobacco side or deletes, vice versa. It's just kind of your very old like system that's just not really doing it for us anymore. It does workflows. We can assign tasks to each other, but it doesn't license, like it doesn't spit out automatically licenses or anything like that. It doesn't spit out applications. It doesn't have a portal for the taxpayers to actually log in and request a permit. So this new system will be public facing as well. So a lot of the stuff we get phone calls about, they can just email in, upload their change of manager. It'll automatically send something to Brandy. She'll look at it, review, send it to me for approval. I click a button, it's approved. So we're hoping it will streamline a lot of things, but it is it's a very big project. The requirements are super intense in order to capture both what tobacco needs, what ABC needs, and what enforcement needs. Because it will also have to have evidence, logistics, confiscated items list, vouchers for the pay, plus all the education we're hoping to get. So it's going to be a big project. And we're looking at right now, I think the estimate for ABC side of things would be about $5 million. And we're really hoping that DFA make that investment in us because I think it's long needed. And what about medical marijuana? Will that be a separate or good question. Right now, as you guys know, we just got that new medical marijuana licensing system. That is all it does. It doesn't keep track of violations. It doesn't keep track of anything else. It just licenses marijuana. We have a good relationship with the company that built that for us. They are working on the DFA website improvements right now. So OIS is hopeful that we can maybe wiggle out of that and push it towards our RMS if we can. Whoever is successful in the RFP, if they can do the same types of things, we would like to lump that in. And that way we provide consistency for all the permits that we do. Okay, next we've got in the news. You guys, I'm sure saw a lot of in the news about the hearing you all took a part of last time, so I didn't put that on here because I know you guys know about it. But one that I saw that was just kind of funny, can you buy alcohol on July 4th? I don't know why they even wrote the article because the answer is yes. In every single state you can. But they did mention that we're one of the only states that has the Christmas Day rule. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then over on the Arkansas Advocate, you saw basically they wrote up about how the last 5 years have gone. Did we get as many patients as we thought we would? All that kind of stuff. And they saw that, yeah, the numbers pretty much accurately reflected the growth that we expected. And then that bottom one I added just to show you that some of these websites use our logo. And so that's why we need a new one. Because I did not know that the Arkadelphian was using our logo, but they are.
Yeah, I remember Arkadelphian.
Okay, so you guys have seen this slide a lot. Today is the day we finally get to approve these rules. And part of the hold up on that has been the timelines in which to get them in front of ALC and approved by the governor. Of that. So if we don't set our board date at the right time, then we miss the timeline for ALC. So that is why this got pushed back a week. And so we appreciate you guys working with us on that. Okay, I've been talking a lot. Drew, come up here. Okay. Drew has been working on these rules since she started. There are 11. 10 of them are based on legislative changes. So we are matching our rules to legislation as has been practiced for ABC in the past. So I'll let Drew kind of run through the first 4. I think there's like 3 on the next slide and then 4 after that. So we can vote in like batches, or we can vote all of it in if y'all want. But if you have any questions, Drew or I will hope to answer them. But do you mind just kind of giving them a rundown? Sure. So this little blurb is going to be on the packets that went to the governor, that went to, and then we'll go to ALC hopefully next month. And this is just a brief summary, and if you have further questions, that will always discuss if anybody needs any clarification. First one comes from, it's in response to Act 7.5, and it is changing the prohibition of sale for alcohol by vending machine, and that's not always necessarily vending machine, but also sometimes just a dispensing machine that you do yourself. So we're seeing a lot of bars that want to have like beer pouring stations. So you kind of take a beer bowl, a wine bowl, and there's a mixologist that has to be there to help you, and then they have all these radio frequency devices that are required. There's a lot of rules that go along with that. We haven't seen very much of it because it does require a lot of loopholes. Like you have to have this RFID device attached to you. And so some people are like, we give out wristbands, we give out necklaces, like it just, the law kind of makes it a little complicated for them to do it, as it shouldn't, because it's a little bit risky to have vending alcohol.
The wall is considered a vending device, right?
Yes. And those RFIDs, I always tell people it's like the things where if you've been to Disney World the past like 15 years, you get a back pass, they give you those bracelet things. It's kind of like that would be considered an RFID. That's the first one. The second one comes from Act 684.
Quick question myself. Would that vending wall be allowed in an establishment that allows under 21?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the need for the ban or whatever they choose.
Yeah, and they have to, it's a certain amount of alcohol that can be checked out at one time. So sometimes that's only includes 2 beers. So you will have to go to the counter, check out with your ID, and they give you your RFID that will only allow you to get the 2 beers, or whatever the limit is on that alcohol. And then most places are having a mixologist, an employee that's there to help you make beer, make sure that you're pouring correctly, and that it's all happening the right way. How people figure out how to keep up with those rules, we don't really know how. We're not going to tell them exactly how they need to make sure that these rules are followed, but it's pretty stringent. There's a lot of requirements. Yeah, it takes a lot of, you asked to go to sleep and your mom's like, can you have early though? That's kind of what we did here. We're like, we'll give you the dispensing, but there are some pretty strict requirements on it.
We have one going in a building of ours that's doing this product. And they saw their sign up front, the posted sign.
Oh, really?
And so I don't know if that's gone through yet or not. Birdie's through.
That one doesn't sound familiar, but they can always call us if they have questions on the front end. But that is something that the attorneys are going to bring to my attention if they notice it on applications. Just that it's a new law, we make sure we're following. And this is something too that when we do seminars, at least when I do the seminar and I'm explaining, there's some new rules that pass. If you ever have any questions about them for us to go into further detail, please call, because they did have before me, when this passed, they had someone, ABC, had somebody that bought a vending machine and then wanted to put it in their place, and ABC investigated it, and it turned out it did not meet half of the requirements. It was just a vending machine, basically. And so they were told, like, you can't have this. And they had spent thousands of dollars on this vending machine. And so I tell people that at seminar, you had this person buy a vending machine, wasn't allowed to spend thousands of dollars. Before you spend thousands of dollars on some sort of dispensing machine, please call us. And so I've sent the new law and rules based on that law to maybe 3 people since October. So it's kind of like the to-go stuff. There's so many requirements that a lot of people probably aren't going to want to be touching this.
So I mean, they haven't started construction yet, but I saw the posted sign, you know, the typical ABC one sign, sure it's coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
But when he was explaining it to me as a landlord, not anything with ABC,
Right.
he was talking about, you know, before I'd even seen any of this stuff coming through, was the RFIDs to look on wristbands and,
Sounds like he's read the rule then, or the statute at this point, yeah.
and he sent me like a link to like product website and you basically have to, you can like someone registers them on the front end and it ties to their credit card.
Mhm.
But we didn't talk about it, but I didn't know, like, when you're talking like drink minimums or maximums, is that like a total number, like, you can have a total of 5 drinks? Or is it like, or is it like in like with like a time interval? Like, I would think of it more of an issue of one guy getting it, you know, someone that's, you know, has an ID, be it real or fake, in an ideal world real. But he has friends of them that are like not 21 yet, that they can just go and like swipe like 5 times and then
And
have,
giving to all of his friends.
yeah,
So I think the law actually does require like a server, they call him a mixologist, but it basically requires a watchdog to sit
Yeah.
there and watch the things
Yeah.
and that's not happening.
but I can see there being like a time limit, like not, you know, once you swipe one drink, there's like a
Yeah.
certain reasonable amount of time.
I think some she saw you had to check out after a few drinks. And so
It
it's actually,
depends on the type of alcohol. So it's, you know, you can get 2 beers and only 1 glass of wine, whatever it is, I can look it up. So that way, which is a lot like with samples, our sample rules, it's more beer compared to the wine per liquor. So it's that kind of thing. And then once they get that limit on, let's say it's 16 ounces of beer, their card will not let them get another drink. That's the purpose of the RFID. It's gonna stop you. Maybe you have to go up to the counter, check out again. So that the issues were, checking IDs and this just constant flowing of alcohol. So that's why it makes them go basically recheck out. It's supposed to.
It's supposed to help keep certain intoxicated.
It works at underage, which is kind of the big thing on vending machines, why the other guys didn't work. They had some sort of like base ID that was going to scan your card and scan your face, and that's how it would know it was an ID, and that was not in the rule. It didn't fit the requirements. But they have something like that in Memphis. And it's not that much Chicago. Somebody said that they had went to a vending machine in Memphis, stuck their ID in, they did some sort of facial recognition, gave them beer. So those things are happening in other places, but they will not.
we haven't got any questions about that here yet. So we're not quite that high tech, but we are wading into the mid thing.
Especially the passport. It's got your face, it's got your passport, but it's recognizing it. Send it through, see it.
Probably when that technology comes up, the ability to have a fake ID is going to be 0.
Yeah.
I think we're out there now.
And then the next one's kind of silly. Not too much to discuss on that one, just basically allowing promotional items in a liquor store.
To have the name of your
Your
business.
business offers a t-shirt or whatever. So that one's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, and then the next one is allowing microbrewery restaurants to make ready to drink products, those are seltzers, that have like tequila or vodka in them. And 4 is, they're gonna, microbreweries is not gonna be allowed to sell spirituous beverages, which probably goes along with that RTD. They're gonna be allowed to sell liquor.
And I think the spirit behind that is that it's really more like a restaurant. The microbrewery is such an added element to it, but just like any other restaurant where you could order a mixed drink or wine or beer, that's kind of the thought behind that one.
So like a brewery could, you do like a whiskey coke, not like just a high noon, you're saying like an actual like.
So that's the number 3 is referring to ready to drinks, which would be canned mixed drinks.
But I'm saying they can make them.
Correct. That's that they could brew them and can them. But then number 4 is saying that in the restaurant, we can serve you back your table a spirituous liquor like whiskey or tequila or whatever.
And that was also already happening in private clubs. So that was for microbrewery restaurant private clubs. And private clubs themselves have already been selling liquor. So that just was probably an oversight when they first made the law about microbrewery restaurant private clubs. And then they were like, oh, shoot, we didn't say that they could have liquor. And so then that was created, just to be added to the microbrewery restaurant private club permit.
And the microbrewery, do they have to serve food?
Yes.
Okay,
The restaurant section of the Easy Money restaurant does have to serve food, and we are working on some of the definitions of meals are really funny. So we're kind of working on how to get those in line to keep our enforcement officers knowing what they're looking for.
so someone that just has a brewery at their spot, they can't sell liquor by this.
So that would have to be a small brewery. So microbrewery restaurants have to have a restaurant.
Yeah.
But if you're a small brewer, there's a handful of differences in a small brewer and a microbrewery restaurant. They can create the same amount, put out the same amount of product for a year. But a small brewery, one of the differences is they don't have to have a restaurant. They can just sell their own beer. However, if they do want to sell liquor, they have to have a tap room. And that tap room can be connected to their brewery. It doesn't have to be somewhere else. But once they get that tap room approved, then they are allowed to sell liquor.
That's currently allowed, like right now.
That's part of the small brewery permit and
There's
legislation.
still no food.
Once they have liquor, they would have to tap room and sell food.
Yeah, see, this is why it's complicated for them. That's why we always suggest to have people call us, because you have an idea in your head and you look at the whole book and you're like, how do I get this done?
Well, that is like you get and microwave frozen pizzas, like the
Well,
fancy clubs do.
So like what if, like, and that's where like another like thing that I've seen in several spots, like I know a brewery that they have like 3 food trucks out front.
Some people have decided to do like permanent food trucks that are going to fix to their building or within their premises. Other people have chosen to do that kind of as a one-off if they have an event there.
Yeah.
So maybe
the
it's
small breweries, if they have those food trucks, they probably aren't selling liquor.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why the question is like, if they had this kind of food truck, if there's food there at all times, open at the times they're open, count as the restaurant.
I'm gonna give you the lawyer answer. It depends. I have to see the actual like floor plan, where the fence is, where the point of sale is, and if they're combined with the inside. I mean, we live in the gray area a lot, because a lot of it is truly in it depends.
Does the revenue of that food truck have to go to the microbrewery
We'll have to
versus
look,
being independent?
right, because you can't sell at least a part of your permit. So you can't just like have your brewery and then lease out a restaurant that somebody else runs that's kind of attached to you somewhere. So
But I think even more complicated for you, the area that's outside of the food truck store is in an entertainment district.
see, and that might actually resolve some of the issues, because then somebody who purchased it from a different bar down the street could walk up. So maybe that would need to be fenced, because all things in entertainment district. But that could get even more complicated, which is why we always try to not answer questions like blanket statements, because the answer to one person is almost never the same answer to someone else, because everybody has their own business idea.
Moving on to 5. This is allowing private clubs in wet areas to sell food to go. When that originally was created, it just was restaurants pretty much. And number 6 is allowing microbreweries to self-distribute by obtaining a microbrewery restaurant wholesale license. That was one of the differences in small breweries and microbreweries that they've now closed that gap.
It's also a general exception to the three-tier system. Obviously, manufacturers aren't supposed to be retailers, but microbrewers fall into this exception because of their craft.
And it's just an extra permit that kind of goes along with their permit. You have to have a microbrewery permit to get this microbrewery restaurant wholesale license. Number 7, that is going to the state park permits. They currently have, well, not anymore. They let them expire at the end of June. They had a couple private clubs, and some of their Red to Gray had a private club permit for their state park, and now the state parks has their own. They're doing them. That is going to be, people call us and ask about aging they need to call state parks. They're gonna have their own permits, but they are doing the whole thing. You're not gonna have very much to do with that.
We enforcing.
We are,
Yes.
we are involved in enforcement. We've had some meetings with them on the front end of kind of what that would look like. It will look very similar to kind of the general checks that we do on other private clubs or any other establishment really. And then they will always refer to us if there is a specific issue. So the question becomes, state gray area, do they come to the board?
Yeah.
Or do they have some sort of other administrative hearing in front of a park?
Because a fine, they're fine, they'll be fining themselves. So the violation is
They
like,
knows they're going to be their own animal and state parks get to that, or will they have to use it?
We're gonna work pretty closely with them on this, and so I think we can, the first year is gonna be a learning experience. But yes, to Drew's point, the private clubs that were in parks did not renew their private club licenses. They've sought out parks licenses. And so we've had pretty good contact with the general counsel for the Parks Department. And so I think we will kind of probably in the next week or two, need to have a meeting about what that will look like. Because that's kind of in the gray area in my mind all along. If it's not an ABC permit, I don't know that the ABC board should be ruling on a violation of it. So it may be kind of more an administrative agreement to allow, I don't know, them to maybe come to a director's hearing at my office. I truly don't know.
And state parks is essentially policing themselves.
Yeah, the question that I see or the issue could be like, if a park is not being run up to the standard of like what a permittee is over here, and like a park becomes very, the crime and violence that you see in some clubs, and you have the ability to pull that license, or it becomes a hotbed, like teams know they can get in there because their buddies are part of the park system. You get beers.
Yeah.
And
Well, they have a lot of seasonal workers who have to be trained constantly.
I think one thing though is you guys are on the right track because it's not an ABC permit, but everybody's gonna think it's what we do, right? Because it's very closely related to what we do. So if we were to run into any of those issues, I think we could all sit down and draft a letter together on behalf of either ABC agency or ABC board on what we would like to see done, either to parks directly, request meetings, or, even higher up to that and say, look, we're a little concerned about this and here's why, because you guys, quite frankly, see a lot more of this than what parks has seen in the past.
So
So,
the public is gonna look at us when there's issues,
exactly.
not knowing we may not be fully in control.
How did we land on this decision? Is it because state parks wants the revenue from the licenses or?
This was passed in 2023 before I got here, so I don't want to speak necessarily to their motive. I do know that there have been a lot of temporary permits in parks, and so this is kind of a way to move away from temporaries into something a little bit more permanent without doing a private club specifically.
everything that we're not getting the permits, but they're winning the revenue, the sales.
Oh, so they can take it from the sales since it's in a state park.
they also are having big events. So like with the eclipse, like certain state parks wanted to do events. And instead of getting a temporary from us every time they have a bike race through their state park or the eclipse, things like that, they just have their own permits, and they're also adding like, there's one, can't remember which one, but it's got a restaurant and it's got like cabins, and they have people that come and stay, and they want to be able to serve them wine in their restaurant while they watch the sunset over the mountain. So I think that's kind of the,
The way I think about it is like if I was going on a hike at Pinnacle Mountain, I wanted like a beer afterwards, there's a spot out there that, in a situation like that, if it was on the premise of like Pinnacle Mountain, if I buy a beer and the markup from the cost of what they pay for the beer and what they sell it for, that's revenue going into the, the coffers of the park system.
I don't necessarily know that the parks are the owners of the private clubs. It could be a restaurant that's been a private club owner for 20 years and
Then usually bring a third party operator like they brought Long Valley up there, but some self alcohol.
I think it could be utilized in different ways, but how we're seeing it now are not state permit holders. Like the park area is permitted, but any of the private clubs that would be selling are individually owned at this point. That's all I can say. this is one of those things that we were a little hesitant when we saw it for kind of these same reasons. However, parks are monitored by an actual law enforcement agency. There are park rangers. They still have every liability that any other establishment permitted would have, whether that's our enforcement or sworn law enforcement in the park. If I see an underage kid with a beer in his hand, they are obligated to kind of incident report, all that kind of stuff, just like they would be on the street if we were up themselves RPD. So there is going to be some working in tandem with ABC enforcement agents. We do that now where Jonesboro Police Department refers an incident to ABC because maybe they arrested a minor at a bar. And so they want us to look into the bar. They handle the minor side of things, but we need to handle the permanent establishment side of things. So I think there will be a lot of overlap there between us and actual park ranger enforcement.
So like, do Corps of Engineer lakes fall under parks, or is that?
I don't know.
That's where the code will come in.
And you bring up a really interesting point. Waterways
Yeah.
are a legal thing of their own. And we are starting to kind of dip our toe, unintended, into that discussion. Our law clerks have kind of been looking into waterways as far as boats and other local permits and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But we pushed into it. It is a good question.
It's like it's really good. On Arkansas, I'll be a great thing.
Well, like the Bell and Hot Springs aren't gonna ever come back from the tornado, but,
Is that what finally shut them down? They were hit with the tornado?
yeah, it's not all the warrants they found in town place.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. Well, that has been, some of us has been looking back into the history of what ABC's done before, the Bell, or Gators. So it's been an interesting research project for the law clerks. We've been talking about it a lot, but that whole who controls the waterways thing is a very interesting legal topic.
And the lake is a little bit different than the river, obviously.
Yeah.
Rivers go up through multiple states, multiple counties, and
So
some lakes do a little bit, but not the way that Arkansas River does.
Yeah.
All else.
Okay, so just 4 more to go.
This one is going to allow bars to, and restaurants to expand their outdoor operations without getting vertical. Before, they were having to send us all this stuff, we are doing inspections to make sure that everything is
Check after check. They built a deck and then we're having to send paperwork back and forth and send officers like your deck is going to just send us in a floor plan, show us what you changed and we're good.
Is there like are there any caps on that?
Well, so they have to send us, they have to let us know, because we have to know where they're serving alcohol. So we need a new updated floor plan. Whenever you change anything in your business, we're supposed to get an updated floor plan so that we know this is where you can take alcohol. This is the limit where when it crosses over. Okay. So they have to tell us that. Additionally, that restaurant makes drink permit, minimum maximum comes into play. By adding these 4 tables outside, are you putting yourself over the 100 seats, the 99 seats into that restaurant mixture maximum? Because then you would need different permit.
Okay.
And same thing with taking away. If you're taking out, you build this huge deck and it never gets used, and you think, I might want 3 parking spots instead of this giant deck. So you're gonna take that out. You could pull yourself back down to that restaurant minimum. It's cheaper permit. And so we can still need to know the limit of where we go. So that's pretty much the only thing I'm doing on.
And then the next one kind of is a similar issue. It used to be illegal for private clubs to have patios because they considered seeing human beings consuming alcohol on the patio was an advertisement that consumption of alcohol occurred in that place, which is against the advertising rules in our counties. So this just basically cleans that up. Yes, you can have a patio with some fresh air and it's not considered advertising the consumption of alcohol.
Same with the tinted windows and the blinds over the windows that you were seeing in dry times beforehand. That's no longer be necessary. I think the tinted windows was kind of the whole point of this law that they passed. Number 10, permits for certain stores, manufacturers, or small components in dry areas to exclusively sell to wholesalers. Just changing a little bit in that 3-tier system regulation. then number 11 would, change the time in which deliveries by wholesalers can begin. This was one that we had, the industry people, the wholesalers requesting, us to push this up to 4 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. because of the big places like Walmart's that you have to get in a line, to make your deliveries. And so if they can make their deliveries at 4 a.m., starting 4 a.m. or getting that line starting earlier, that's more helpful for them. So it went from 5 a.m. to 4 a.m. That's the only one that's not based off of legislation.
And yeah, that one, we didn't really see that there would be a practical effect on anyone other than helping them out. So we thought that that would be a fair change. However, again, more legal nonsense. The way that our statutes are written, we do want you guys to vote on these rules. If for some chance you did not like them, we don't have to put them in our rule book, but they're already passed by the legislature or statute. Yes. So the only one you really actually could say, Christy, I do not like it, is number 11, and we don't have to go forward with it. So a little bit of a formality here, but we do want you guys to know what we're working on, why we're working on it, and if you get questions to be in the loop. So that's why we wanted to go ahead and present these as a packet. And we would like you guys to just, even if it's kind of a rubber stamp situation, but to show the ABC board does approve of these rules if you ask for it to.
We don't approve them all, eventually it's gonna come up.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, for ease of use, if anyone has an opposition to this, but I can make a motion that we approve all the 11 proposed rules here at this time, and then we second it. Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, well, I'd like to make a motion at this time that we, have the board approve the 11 new rules proposed to us today. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you for letting us tell you all about them.
Yeah.
Because we just want to make sure you guys are in the loop.
That was really helpful.
I know it's kind of a long PowerPoint today, but I think it does bear going over some pieces. I know you guys get questions about.
This is also considered our public hearing meeting, so we put in the newspaper for 3 days that this was going to happen. And rules are getting promulgated and people are allowed to make any sort of public comment about them. But again, because the 11 aren't.
We don't
No
see
public
any visitors here, so I think we're probably okay.
One thing on the rules, not related to these, but with us having it being a legislative year coming up where these will be coming through again. I've not ever been a part of here where the board's ever been proactive on, trying to push things with the legislative assembly coming in. But I think that, I know that we've seen things through the years like the Axe Throwing as an example, but, I think that maybe having some discussions between now and like the end of the year on like, here are things that as a ABC board and an ABC staff, we'd like to try to put together a list of recommendations on things we'd like to see cleaned up from a legislative perspective that are things that we can't change because it's, it's not in our purview. And I think that, also opening it up to people that y'all work with in the actually out in the field on either the enforcement officers, but also licensees on, things that just need to be tried to clean up and be proactive instead of us like not, all these things that are coming through right now. I think it'd be better if those kind of things start with us working through it on the front end. And then we, as it's going into the legislative session, we're
driving it.
We're driving. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. And we do have lots of legislative ideas, not to speak poorly of our rules, but they need work.
Yeah.
And I think they've been piecemealed together over several administrations. So we do kind of have an ongoing list of things that are inconsistent, things that we want to change either in rules or whether or not it requires legislative changes. One of our biggest legislative pursuits, I want ABC admin to be in a position where we can afford really good workers, good attorneys. And historically, we have been a little bit underfunded. I know you guys know that the marijuana side of things is very well funded. However, ABC can actually not get access to any of that money unless it is for marijuana purposes. So we're working on some legislative ideas as far as the budget and combining some of the budget with what ATC and enforcement currently have, if possible. Trent's helping me out on some of that, but we do also have some legislative ideas that as we work through them, I think some can be resolved by rule changes or direct windows. So we're trying to right now kind of parse through what actually needs to be legislative priorities, which can be handled in another strategic way. But if you guys have ideas, please.
Obtaining some of the permitting revenue, other revenue that may go into the general fund. That kind of what you're alluding to.
Yes, there are some things I've recently been studying in our budget that don't make sense. There are some fees that ABC should be receiving as far as brand registrations, in my opinion, that historically have been given to other sides of the operation because they needed things like vehicles or computers or other like super important things. And so I think maybe that had been done years ago and just nobody kind of reevaluated. So I think there are just things to reevaluate as far as funding sources.
Well, it's frustrating, gosh, just the past 4 or 5 years to see all the turnover. And a lot of that turnover is simply because of salary you can offer.
Yeah, that's what's
It's that type of thing. And I know that's super frustrating. It has to be. So any extra revenue that we can keep in our account and our budget, I think a great deal of that. So,
And Trent Benner has been really instrumental with me going through the budget and look at them. I think it fell back in. We've also been kind of looking at ways to maybe get more positions, but also kind of work on behalf of attorneys for the state. We've kind of linked up with some other agencies who have written some letters talking about just this very issue. Because I think for ABC, it's not only money too, but if they can't get paid enough and they leave quickly and we're not attending these conferences, they never really get their feet under them to start to understand it, because you've heard just a little bit today of how complicated it can be. And so if we can't really keep attorneys in the door, it's not helpful for anybody in the future. But this is a super interesting area of law, and it's just sad sometimes to see what the AG's office, for instance, can offer their attorneys and versus what we can. We have really, really good staff over here, and they are working so hard to try to get through this stuff. And I know it's tough on Drew right now with Peter just having left, and that was our second alcohol attorney. So, but we're working through it. We're happy to have Polly here. We think that's an overlap between the medical marijuana attorneys and the alcohol attorneys coming soon.
Speaking of medical marijuana, what's sort of the game plan or thinking around this ballot measure now that it looks like they've got the signatures on that?
for recreation.
I wish David Potter was here. He's
Expanded medical.
technically it's not recreational. It is expanded medical. David Potter's eyes get real big every time somebody says home grow. That's probably, I think, the scariest thing for the agency. I have been in some discussions with some people who work on seed-to-sale systems like BioTrack, which is what Arkansas uses. For other states have given essentially like a taproot endorsement, but to the patient card holder. So that card holder would have like a second endorsement potentially, which allows them to do home grow. We're still figuring out what that would look like, because I think, you know, writing in the amendment that ABC enforcement is responsible for regulating home grow is just kind of a big ask. So
Also,
it's something we're going to have to figure out. And so I think that's one of the big differences as far as our involvement on enforcement. Some of the other highlights in the amendment, which y'all might be aware of, I think maybe should talk about some of it, but who can authorize the patient card. And there's also a pretty big catch-all about qualifying conditions. I think the last factor is basically anything that your medical professional may think you need it for. So that could bring a surge in patients. I truly don't know.
It's like anxiety or depression or something that basically everyone has.
So I would expect the patient cards to jump up. Department of Health, I think, contracts with the third party now to get the patient cards done, so I've heard they're moving a little bit quicker. That could obviously mean our dispensaries are a little bit busier, but as far as the practical day-to-day difference for us, it doesn't change the amount of licenses for the facilities. And so we're still dealing with the same 8 cultivators and the same group of dispensaries that we've, been dealing with for the last 5 years.
So if you had a mass increase of cards and obviously a massive increase in product coming through the state. The cultivation facilities don't have a cap on the size of the amount of product they're able to produce to where it doesn't become like a shortage type situation.
No, I don't think we have a cap on production. I can go back and look and verify that, but that doesn't sound like anything yet.
It's gonna be able to expand it with the same rate as the cars.
And I'm sure there'd be hate to have to expand.
There's some interesting ways to, have you guys all been on forest cultivation sites? Have you been to Good Day? They used containers to create all ways to expand. There's pretty creative ways to do it.
Tools of having to be connected. And then they gotta be, gotta be heated and cool.
Well, there you go.
They're gonna,
They,
it works.
The only thing that I'd say is, and this I think we're more like an MNC thing than us, would be, having some check and balance. If a cultivation facility like one that might be in a city that has had issues with smells, with a lot of complaints around the neighbors, if that issue is not getting fixed and there is this increased demand, having some type of check, like we're not going to allow more of that to be built to create more issues in that area if you're not fixing the inherent problem that's there now.
and there are lots of pre-inspections as far as when they're building on, because marijuana is so strict on security. And it is so strict on every single move that seed or plant is making is tracked. So our enforcement officers are super diligent on getting in there, checking keypads, checking floor plans, making sure everything is thoroughly inside the premise and connected the right way. So I think we're working towards improvement on any situation that may exist with odor. But yes, that is something that our enforcement officers are acutely aware of, because it's obviously a public facing problem. We want to make sure to do that in the butt as quick as we can on any of these.
I know like good in SM, there's not a lot of.
There's no neighbors.
There aren't neighbors you have to really worry about. I don't know why anyone would try to build one of the facilities and anywhere other than something like that, but that was an MC decision, not an ABC.
So it's expanded. It's, recreational. We are to be proactive. So that took a long time to get everything implemented. And so are we being proactive on these expanded?
Yeah, I think based on our discussions with BioTrack and what other states are doing with home grow regulation, I think that's the main thing that we need to be proactive on. The only other thing that's probably going to change is the number of patients, and therefore maybe the activity level of this. But for us, I really think the main concern would be how do we either endorse this person to have a home grow or check in and make sure that they are within the rules of what that home grow allows.
So that you restrict.
That is what we're leaning towards. There would have to be some sort of regulation, and it feels like a reasonable way to do so would be some sort of endorsement of their patient card that also like a sticker or something that says this person also has registered and been approved for home grow or something along those lines. That is one thing David Pollard does not want to do, because I do think there are Fourth Amendment concerns with us being a state by law enforcement jurisdiction, home grow, and houses and backyards. I think there's lots of legal issues there, so we're going to have some discussions on the front end, which we have started, but some more detailed discussions about what that's going to look like for us.
Also with home grow, isn't it 7 plants? I mean, it was something ridiculous where
If you can't,
including the dispenser.
but if
Maybe
you
right,
can't-
eventually,
but if you can't inspect it,
you wouldn't even know.
yeah, the person
Really grow as many
can
as
have
they want.
30 plants.
Or it's being like for the administration.
Yeah. So I can tell y'all what Potter and Mr. Minner have been discussing. A lot of other states who have tried this have seen that it's like the grow your own tomato effect. You try it, you realize it's a lot easier to go to the store and buy tomatoes at the store. So I think, personal opinion here, I do think we will see some people try. And then I think we will see some people say it's not worth it.
Unless someone has an intention of selling it.
But if they do have an intention of doing it, they're going to get it with or without them.
That was a good point, yeah.
Yeah, they got that up. Yeah,
But you're not legal to sell it though, are you?
No, you're legal
No.
to possess.
you're legal possessed. I mean, have it, be growing.
Just like the tracking systems with the dispensers and cultivation, no tracking here is open, so black markets.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and could you, on that endorsement type thing, in that scenario, like strip someone of their, like, if someone is found to be doing something nefarious, they lose the endorsement to.
I think we're probably gonna have to promulgate some rules, if not legislation, to handle it. And I do think that it would have the same type of fines, ramifications which that one or red card or a license currently has. I would think that's how it would work. But I also think there's gonna be some onus on local law enforcement, right? Because they're the ones entering people's homes on, say, a domestic call. They go inside, all of a sudden they see a couple weed plants, and now they're trying to figure out, okay, is this ABC endorsed or not? So I think some of the onus is going to be on the other law enforcement agencies that are coming in contact with the first probable cause, which should have someone know that weed is there.
when you're allowed to bring beer at home, as long as you don't sell it, and to my knowledge, it's not getting their hands, I guess.
I don't think we have seen any violations from anyone brewing at home, so since I've been here, I haven't seen anything about that. Okay, I think we have one more slide, and it's kind of a silly one, but I did want to show y'all that the logo was being used in that other newspaper article. I don't know that our logo is used often. These are kind of two that we voted on and we thought we liked, but we don't have a marketing expert here. We're using our lovely paralegal Lila. I suggested to her yesterday, which I think I forgot to add to the PowerPoint, maybe moving the Arkansas like over into the Arkansas. So that way it says
This,
alcohol under the A, beverage under the B, control under the C kind of thing. Do you guys have any thoughts, or if anyone's artsy and has any ideas?
I think that is good.
We kind of got
But the
creative
Arkansas
as a TSA.
if you have the state, do you need the Arkansas?
Exactly.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah,
you
the
just
word.
say.
Yeah.
Do we need the word
I
Arkansas?
was worried about somebody across the country that has no idea what the map looks like.
Just put alcohol and beverage control with the state, you know.
Things that Arkansas can pick up.
It could also be kind of cute to put like an AR in the corner. But then that kind of looks like it's for adding letters to the name, so I think I kind of like your idea.
It's like, it'd be hard to see inside the state, it's gotta be smaller.
So I think we will probably add those next to our email signatures with the DFA logo, which is also green. And we'll probably use it for our on-campus interviews for law clerks and stuff. But other than that, you may see it in a few newspaper articles. We can start putting it on stuff if y'all like it. But I just thought
ABC flag.
we can try to get some swag.
I think it's really my comment would be, just test the color of the green because the readability of it to make sure on screens and on printouts that it doesn't need to be like a deeper, more saturated.
Okay. We will look at it.
Lines or no lines?
What do y'all think?
I like the lines.
I kind of liked the lines too, just because
Lines
it
are good
balances
if you
it
go
out.
to the green lettering, so
Makes
it's a
it
little
cleaner and
cleaner, yeah.
Yeah. And so then if we scooch the letters, get rid of the Arkansas, scooch it over, it can be kind of like a symmetrical.
You sure,
Uh-huh.
overall.
When you can do it with and without, like if you were to have like like if someone from the ABC was going in somewhere and you wanted to have a shirt with it on, it might look cleaner just to have it without the lines in like a scenario like that.
Yeah.
But
Speaking of shirts, do you want to hold one?
I was not saying all that, because I want like, I'm just saying like in general, like sometimes you want a cleaner version and
No
no
marijuana leaf.
You don't want to leave on? But yeah, so we just want to modernize a little bit. I don't think anybody looked at it. So we just thought we would take a swing at it.
Yeah.
And we can look into swag, which actually brings me up to something I did not mention. One, we need to set our next meeting date. And two, the Medical Marijuana Expo is August 16th and 17th at Verizon. Trent Minner, David Potter, myself, and Chip have been requested to speak on a panel on the industry day, which is that Friday. So I guess that's the 16th. We can probably swing you guys invites if you want to come. I don't know if any of you have been to the Marijuana Expo
what date
before.
did you say it was for Friday, 16th?
16th and 17th.
15th, yeah, so.
16th is Friday.
Yeah,
then
so,
that's the day. That's
so they're in the meeting on the 14th, as you're saying?
they will have, hold on.
The 14th, I think, is the first day of school for a lot of us.
Okay, the 16th is the industry day, the 17th is the public day. That's the Saturday.
Actually, August 12th.
Different school, different school districts.
Oh,
Well, 14th is
I
the
consider-
earliest date, I thought.
We got Springfield starts.
I thought the law said 14th, I could be wrong.
But it's definitely that week. for
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I'm sorry.
So I know you guys may want to schedule around first day of school stuff. I didn't know if you wanted to push it to the end of August. But then I also wanted to mention that they are on Expo in case any of you guys want to be invited or you want to go to public day. We can probably use yes.
Third, it's 21st.
21st, yeah.
Yeah, the 21st. That's what we have it set right now. But did we already set it last time, the 21st?
Yeah. Yeah, we said.
That good with y'all?
Yeah.
That's fine.
That works. Okay, do we want to set September? Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's all right.
It sometimes helps our staff because when applicants call, they need to know like when to put the posting in the newspaper and how to plan based on when our board meeting's set.
Should be the 18th of September.
Is that good for y'all?
So.
I'll be out the 11th, well, actually, first 2 weeks.
Well, we don't want to interfere with any hunting. Okay, so thank you guys for setting in September too, because that does help our team. Yeah. That helps our front desk ladies to be able to give them information about when they need to have stuff into us. Okay, Violet, am I missing anything? Okay, before we adjourn, I did just want to let you guys know, Brandy ran upstairs and got the file that Mr. Anderson had a question on. Do you guys want me to look through this and we take a recess and kind of talk about it on the record to readdress? Okay, and I'll look at
I
it.
just,
and talk.
there.
Well, keep the flag in my mind. I do want to look at it.
Okay. I know they had some violations, I just couldn't recall what they were, and fines looked awfully low for some violations this time. Our last hearing about one of these, it was undercover, it was video, it was fairly,
Quite an ordeal.
it's quite an ordeal.
Well, I just want y'all to know that and go look into this too, and then we'll be prepared to answer some of these questions if you guys have them on the resume next time.
And then sorry, for the next 2 meetings, are we meeting here or at?
If this is all still good with you, it's great for us.
Unless you have some big hearing that comes up in one of those 2 months, you feel like you need to move it there to hold my bodies. They can hold here until you make that determination.
Yeah, I have one in September. We may have a hearing, but I don't know that it would take up 4 chairs than what we have here.
Yeah, I mean, like, the hearing here is fine. It's just like, if it's like one that's gonna have like
A lot of.
a church bus of people coming in to all talk about. So, we just want to be accommodated if we do have something like that.
Okay, so we'll plan on here and we will let you guys know if and when it ever changes, but for now, let's plan on here.
Motion to adjourn.
So I do have one other thing I'd like to make a motion on is I have not seen anyone do as well as Director Portis has been doing on pulling all this together and riding the ship in so many ways and in ways that we didn't even know needed to be cleaned up and improved. So I'd like to formally make a motion to thank her for how much, I've seen an improvement since you've been here.
Well, thank you. I said
Yeah.
it.
And that motion, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Good, back our party.
40 minutes.
Okay, y'all want to know?
Oh, no, 40 minutes there.
Uh-oh.
I added another one. Well,
This conference is no longer being recorded.
I appreciate.
Oh, that's my fault.
Y'all said it. Thanks, you guys, for being here. I'll wrap this up.
Okay. Will do.
And let me know, this is the end, right?
yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good to have you.
It's great.
Good to meet you. Thank you.
Do you have an access card? Thank you.
You do?
I'll figure out somewhere.
I know.
I've seen somewhere.
I know. I used to prepare this as a mayor's office, and then I was also working for access.
We got- we got-
Oh, I have my mom.
It's been so much like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, thank you.
I just like.